Hello, welcome to my presentation on a couple recording things and techniques just to help you when you're making your presentation or after you've already recorded it and you're trying to make it just a little bit better. So, some common issues when you're recording can be background hum. Um, that can happen for a lot of reasons. Your mic may not be right, or you may be getting feedback. Uh, My solution for that would be to EQ that. Um, there's other ways you could do that, but that's just the way I know, and it's pretty simple. I'll go into that later. Background noises. Um, if you've got background sounds, say like, I don't know, a heater going on, a way to cut that out instead of just turning it off would be to get closer to your microphone. That will increase the disparity between how loud your sound that you're making is and background sound. Uh, I'll go into the inverse square law a bit more. The basic principle behind that is the every time you double the distance from a source to the mic, it loses 6 decibels of volume. If you've got a bassy sound, like a really big bassy rumble, that may be because you have a cardioid microphone. And if you put a cardioid microphone too close to a source, it picks up more bass frequencies, and that's called proximity effect. It doesn't happen with microphones that aren't cardioid ones. If you've got distortion, you should know what to do. I shouldn't. Well, I don't need to tell you. You just have your gain set too high for the amount of volume that you're putting into your mic, and you just need to turn that down. Or you could move yourself away from the mic, but that won't work with every instrument. Um, Mics. So proximity effect, like I was saying, gives you more bass on a cardioid mic when it's closer to a source. That can be an issue for recordings if you don't want that super bassy, just overpowering sound. Um, there's a bunch of mic patterns from cardioid to super and hypercardioid with omni and then directional microphones. Uh, Usually, most mics like a Shure are just cardioid ones. Um, if you're using a monitor, that can change where you're positioning it. For a cardioid microphone, it doesn't pick up sound from its back, so you'd want to face the monitor straight on to the microphone, straight on to the singer. But for a hypercardioid, you wouldn't want to do that because it will pick up sound behind it, and then you'll pick up the monitor and you'll get feedback. But you might not be using a monitor. You probably wouldn't be. And I would recommend using headphones for recording just because you won't get any chance for feedback. The inverse square law, like I said, the different it the inverse square law is that the more each time you double the distance between a microphone and the source, it gets 6 decibels quieter. EQ is a very important part for editing your sound. Um, More cutting is helpful just so that you can not distort frequencies. Um, there can be an issue if you boost too much and don't cut to make the same sound. To get rid of fuzz, like I was saying, you mainly just want to go through frequencies until you get one that's boosting the fuzz and pull that down. That way, it takes the fuzz out of your mix, but that can be an issue if you're cutting certain sounds that you don't want to. Um, and Musician on a Mission is a resource I'd recommend for everyone. It has a ton of information on everything that I'm talking about. Signal flow is important. I know we've gone over this in class, but there's a lot to know here. Block diagrams, like the one on the left, are good for understanding your entire system. It tells you how a mic takes electricity and sends it all the way to the output through your audio interface and through which cords and through the computer and into your headphones. While a schematic diagram is more important if you've got technical issues with your equipment, that can tell you what exactly is going on and where the issue might be. Uh, so that's why they have two different types. So chord types. When you've got a block diagram, it may tell you what chords you've got, and it's important that you don't mess up what chords are going where. You can't send a mic power chord to an amp, that just won't work. And if you send an amp power to anything but an amp, you may blow something up. Maybe not blow it up, but it'll be bad. So just know that mic level chords send a relatively low amount of power compared to computers and mixers, which send line power, and then amps take or amps send a larger amount of power to like speakers and whatnot. Jacks and XLO chords, you should already be familiar with. Jack is just that prong. It can be called TS if it's just the tip and the sleeve, which is an unbalanced signal. I wouldn't use that for very long distances, just because it is an unbalanced one. But TRS is a balanced one. That stands for tip ring sleeve, and it has a ground, a negative, and a positive. So that would be better for sending signal farther. XLR is always balanced, and it's the one with the three prongs and the circle encapsulating all of it. And unbalanced and balanced. Um, Balanced chords have three sections: a negative, a positive, and a ground, and that just helps maintain the signal better. So, some devices you may use when editing your song or just when you're recording it. A compressor will help you after you've made this recording, and that'll make louder parts softer and quieter parts louder. A DI box changes the signal of an instrument. So if you've got a TS from a guitar and you plug that in to a DI box, you can get an XLR out of it, and you can send that into a mixer from a longer distance away, and it'll carry the signal much better. An audio interface, you know what that is. It just changes analog signal into an electric one. An internal effects processor, it's just something that comes along with a DWA or a mixer, like the ones you may have at a church. Um, and those will just give you an array of effects to use without needing plugins. Thank you for watching the slideshow. I know this was kind of a rough take. Um, it's not done. I'm going to go into Soundtrap and show you some things I've learned there. Alright, so I made this just to show what you can do with the editing process. So here we have our, like, the way the vocal started. So I'm just going to play that for you so you just hear that and hear the difference as each thing happens. Um, Editing, when voice editing is very subtle most of the time, especially if you want to keep that naturalness of it, because people are very good at detecting when a human voice has been altered. So just keep that in mind. Most of these edits are very subtle.
Don't you know I'm no good for you? I've learned to lose, you can't afford to. Tore my shirt to stop you bleeding, but nothing like that, like it like that. Oh, I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that.
So that's the beginning, like the way the vocal started. And then had some compression that I threw in here. It was just something, the way I learned from Musician on a Mission. And that was tonal. This is tonal compression, which is very light. It's just supposed to make the louder parts quieter and the softer parts louder without messing too much around, while also just kind of making the tone around the same.
Don't you know I'm no good for you? I've learned to lose, you can't afford to. Tore my shirt to stop you bleeding, but nothing ever stops you leaving. Quiet when I'm coming home and I'm on my own. I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that. I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that.
So during that, you may have heard that you could hear when they clicked uh, on their computer to stop recording. And that was because when compression kicks in, all of those little sounds that you hear, um, like clicking on your mouse, are going to be amplified because all the quieter sounds are brought up. Um, Now the second thing I did, which is right here, Kate, compression punch. You can mess with compression to make the tone sound different. Tonal compression really tries to not mess with that too much, but you can make it so like each syllable starts off loud but then gets pulled back, and so that's why I named it punch. Um, After compressing it, I cut out all of the parts where you could hear something else happening in the recording that wasn't just her singing.
Don't you know I'm no good for you? I've learned to lose, you can't afford to. Tore my shirt to stop you bleeding, but nothing ever stops you leaving. Quiet when I'm coming home and I'm on my own. I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that. I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that.
So after that process, all you get is Kate singing, and she sings really well. But there's a couple other things that you can do just to make sure that you get the sound only that you want. So after compression, I decided to use an equalizer. And now there really wasn't much that what I did on this part of the equalizer would have changed. Mainly I just cut out the lows, and that was for if you bump the mic, like you might have heard in one of the recordings before this, before the cut one. There was just a bump on the microphone, and that could have been cut out with the equalizer by just cutting down really low frequencies that people don't sing, but like bumps or an earthquake might make. So, um, you won't really be able to hear it. You might hear it in the very beginning section where she sings a little bit lower, but yeah.
Don't you know good for you. I've learned to lose, you can't afford to. Tore my shirt to stop you bleeding, but nothing ever stops you leaving. Quiet when I'm coming home and I'm on my own. I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that. I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that.
So, w- we're almost at the end of what I messed around with on this. Um, at the very end, I decided, hey, I could make her upper mid range a bit louder or accentuated, so that way it kind of shines more compared to the rest of what she sings. And so on the equalizer, I decided to pull down everything that wasn't that high mid range, and that actually will end up having the same effect as just pushing that up, but there's no risk of distortion. And then I pushed the out up. Um, this controls just volume in general coming out of the equalizer, and that will just counteract the loss in volume from all of those other frequencies coming down. So here we go.
Don't you know I'm no good for you? I've learned to lose, you can't afford to. Tore my shirt to stop you bleeding, but nothing ever stops you leaving. Quiet when I'm coming home and I'm on my own. I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that. I could lie and say I like it like that, like it like that.
One last thing to note is if you've got peaks in your recording, there's no way you can fix that post recording. That's something you have to fix before you finalize your recording. You have to fix that before. You can't fix that in the editing phase, at least not that I know of. So, yeah, thank you for watching.